The Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo is arguably a more practical vehicle over the regular Taycan, and in this review I'm going to be explaining why. Now, the model is available in a variety of different trim levels, with the one on review, the 4S. Now, it's worth considering that the price starts from roughly around £89,000 in the UK, and of course at the time of filming, although it's worth bearing in mind that the press vehicle that we have has got a load of options fitted and it comes in at a whopping £110,000. If you want a detailed breakdown between the trim levels and the options that we have fitted, then do check out our written review, that'll be down in the description below. Now, to kick off this review, we have to talk about its performance, and here it's absolutely insane, even in the 4S Cross Turismo. See, you are getting 390 kilowatts of power, which is the same as 523 horsepower via its two motors, one of which is placed on the front axle and another one on the rear axle. This gives you an all-wheel drive configuration as well. Now, in launch control mode, whereby you've got an overboost function, you've got 420 kilowatts of power, and that equates to 563 horsepower. That gives you also 650 Newton meters of torque, which is absolutely insane. Now, we had it tested from 0 to 60 miles an hour via Race Logic's V-Box Sport at 3.78 seconds. Now, top speed is rated at 149 miles an hour and certainly should suffice for a lot of individuals, including the German viewers out there who are going to be driving on the Autobahn. Now, while the Cross Turismo's straight line speed is certainly impressive, it's its handling characteristics that really stand out. See, here it's got an all-wheel drive configuration and also adaptive air suspension as standard. And the adaptive air suspension is absolutely spectacular. See, when you're pottering in and around town, it soaks up the anomalies, speed bumps or potholes, and then it can be dynamically adjusted to bring it down, so therefore it's a bit more aerodynamically tuned for going around windy country roads. Now, in comparison to the regular Taycan just feels a little bit better in terms of the overall driver's feel due to its slightly lower weight and also in terms of its form factor, but nonetheless the Cross Turismo comes in at a close second and is definitely head and shoulders above many of its competitors, including BMW, Audi, Polestar, and of course Tesla. Now, when you are cornering at speed, you want to make sure that you have got good braking power, and thankfully that's something that Porsche is renowned for. The Cross Turismo, as standard, is fitted with 360mm front 6-piston brakes, and at the rear it's got 358mm 4-piston brakes. Now, the combination means that you've got great stopping power. Of course, it's no surprise here that you can upgrade them to pretty much the nth degree, and you can spend a pretty penny if you so wish, and that will be really applicable for those people who are going on regular track days. Now, this does perfectly lead us onto its regenerative braking, whereby the Porsche Taycan and the Cross Turismo only have 0.39 Gs of deceleration, which quite frankly is quite disappointing. This means that when you are lifting off the accelerator pedal, it barely brakes at all, and as a result means that you're going to have to really resort on using the physical brake pedal. Of course, there is a degree of regenerative braking when you do press the physical brake pedal, but it's not enough for our liking, specifically if you want to be driving with a singular pedal. So what about when it comes to its range? Well, I've just pulled up at Porsche Reading, whereby I'm going to be returning the Cross Turismo, and gives me the perfect opportunity to talk about its 93.4 kilowatt hour battery pack, or indeed 83.7 kilowatt hour net. Now, here I attained 220 to 230 miles from my mixed driving test. Now, that is certainly impressive in comparison to the Taycan Turbo, which attained roughly 190 miles, although in comparison to its competitors, such as, let's say, the Tesla Model S, the Tesla Model 3, the BMW i4 or the Audi e-tron GT, it is certainly nowhere near as impressive. And as a result, if range is very much important to you, you might want to look elsewhere. Now, thankfully, however, Porsche have integrated a heat pump as standard in the Cross Turismo, and as a result it means that in wetter or colder climates it's going to be feeding hot air that's fed from the battery packs into the climate controls in a safe manner, and therefore reducing the amount of electricity that you're going to be using in order to heat up the cabin. Now, if you were to run out of juice, you'll be pleased to know that the Taycan Cross Turismo has the 800 volt technology of its sibling, and therefore can support up to 270 kW kilowatts of input. If you were to find a relevant charger, it'll take from 5 to 80% in a mere 22 minutes. Of course, finding them is a little bit hard, and therefore if you find a 50 kilowatt charger, which is a lot more common, at least on the UK highway, there you will find a time of around 90 minutes. If you were to go for a 3-phase power supply that you find at a workplace or indeed at home, you can go from 0 to 100% in roughly 9 hours. Opt for a 7 kilowatt wall box instead, and this time extends up to 11 hours. And it's no surprise to learn that a 3-pin socket will take a lot longer. Now, of course, when it comes to the charging infrastructure, it's no competition to the likes of Tesla, but of course there's a lot more charging spaces being open now, and I suspect if you do have this vehicle, you'll have a convenient place to charge, be it at work or indeed at home, and therefore it might be a non-issue altogether. So moving on, we get onto its interior, and here it's absolutely plush, and it's no surprise because the Cross Turismo shares many similarities with its Taycan sibling. Here, the materials that are used around the dashboards towards the rear parcel shelf, the door frames, and of course the center console are all absolutely sublime. Better still, the steering wheel has got this really nice grip and feel to it, and it's no surprise over here that it can be customized to the nth degree, from the choice of materials or indeed the color options that are available to you. Now, aside from all of this, it is worth bearing in mind that the overall in-cabin experience is really impressive as well, and has been bolstered over the years. Here there's a 16.8-inch curved display that serves as an instrument cluster. It can be customized to a certain degree, giving you the ability to change, let's say, the G-force indicator, or for example have navigation data which is fed through via the built-in nav. Now, alas, over here navigation data from Android Auto and Apple CarPlay aren't supported, at least not at the time of filming. And yes, we did mention both those third-party operating systems, because at the time of filming both of them are supported in a wired and wireless format, and that's thanks to the PCM 6.0 update which came in late 2021. Now, this means that you can integrate both an Android or an iOS device onto the 10.9-inch display that's planted at the center of the dashboard. This is perfect because it allows you to play back your favorite tracks, integrate your contacts, and of course see your points of interest that you've previously saved, say for example on Google Maps. Now, the 10.9-inch display is very fluid and very responsive, and there's no complaints whatsoever. It's also plenty vivid and provides you a good amount of customization as well. Now, aside from the main 10.9-inch display, you've got the ability to add a secondary one, and that can be handy for your passenger to find a point of interest, for example a restaurant or a charging point. Now, elsewhere you do have another 8.4-inch display that's planted towards the center console. This does come fitted as standard and gives you the ability to quickly access certain settings, or for example to adjust the climate controls on the fly. Better still, this display does integrate haptic feedback, which you can enable or disable, and also change the intensity of the haptic feedback. This gives you the feeling that you are pressing a button, and is definitely a great integration, although we still would have preferred physical buttons. Now, for you to heighten the experience within the cabin, you might want to add in a head-up display, and this comes in at £1,128. This will integrate key driving data and also the built-in navigation data as well, which can be handy for you to keep your eyes planted on the road rather than having to glance down to the instrument cluster and or the 10.9-inch center-weighted display. Now, speaking of options, you can also upgrade the 10-speaker 150-watt audio system with the Bose or indeed the Burmester systems. These come in at £956 and £4,200 respectively. We've actually got a review of both of them, and they can be found up on your pop banner, down the description below, or indeed in the pinned comments. Now, what we will say in a nutshell is that the Bose audio system provides you the best bang for your buck performance. While it can't quite compete with the Burmester audio system when it comes to the mid-range nor in terms of the overall soundstage, it is still better than what you can find in the stock audio system. Now, for you to connect up to the infotainment system in order for you to play back your favorite tracks, you have got Bluetooth, you do also have wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and then you have got two USB Type-C ports found towards the center armrest compartment. Here you'll also find a 12-volt socket for you to plug in, let's say, a dash cam. If you want our favorite dash cam roundup, do check it out down in the description below. At the rear of the cabin, you do also have two Type-C ports, although these are solely used for charging. Now, this perfectly leads us onto comfort within the cabin, and here we have to talk about the rear, whereby the Cross Turismo has been really optimized over the regular Taycan, making it far more practical. See, headroom headroom and legroom has significantly improved to the point whereby 6'2", 6'4", or even 6'7" individuals will no longer feel hemmed in. Now, nonetheless, we should point out that the rear seats are still diagonally wedged, and as a result, your pelvis will sit further down from your knees, meaning on longer excursions it might be a little bit more uncomfortable. Now, it's a non-issue at the front, whereby you're treated with comfortable and accommodating electric seats, and you've got 8-way controls and they're heated as standard. However, when it comes to the memory function that comes fitted as standard on many other vehicles, you'll have to splash out £257, which does seem quite ridiculous. Likewise, the steering wheel and the rear seats are not heated as standard, so you'll have to spend some extra cash there. If you want 14 or 18-way controls, or for example you want the fantastic panoramic glass roof or the privacy glass, then you have to spend extra. Suffice to say, there is plenty of options for you to choose from, and Porsche is somewhat renowned for providing you all the options as an additional extra. Now, aside from the plethora of options for you to bolster the comfort within the cabin, let's talk about storage capacity. And here, it's actually a little bit disappointing for a pretty large size vehicle. Now, at the front, you do have a relatively slender glove compartment. Then you do have the 4 door bins, whereby the front 2 are large enough for a 500ml bottle to be sat alongside some small size valuables. Then towards the center console, underneath it, you do have a little bay, but it can be a little bit hard to reach. And towards the frontal profile of the center console, you have got 2 cup holders and then a small little area within the armrest. Although the latter over here does not get propped open automatically and therefore keeps falling down. So as a result, when you're going to be using it while you're on the move, it can be a little bit hard, unless of course you ask your passenger to reach out for one of the valuables. It's worth noting over here, you do also have a wireless charging bay, which can be handy to plug in a modern smartphone. Now, towards the rear of the cabin, of course, I did mention the door bins, but then you do also have a small little bay towards the rear portion of the center console. This can be handy for a singular smartphone, but it is worth bearing in mind this is only present when you do have the 4+1 seat configuration. If, however, you have the 4-seat configuration, then you'll find a pretty large bay over here. Now, if you do go for the 5-seat option, you do have a pull-down compartment which reveals 2 cup holders, and elsewhere you do have the ability to add a 5.9-inch display for your rear occupants at around £580, and in order for you to benefit from 4-zone climate controls. Now, aside from storage within the cabin, you do also have 84 litres of capacity at the front of the vehicle. Although this is quite usable, it's worth bearing in mind that it's only electronically released rather than operated, and therefore you still need manual controls when opening and closing it. Now, the same couldn't be said at the rear of the vehicle, whereby you've got a power tailgate and a hatchback design that comes fitted as standard on all the Cross Turismos. Better still, in terms of total capacity, you've got 446 litres and 1,212 litres when the seats are propped down. It's not as large as some of its competitors, but it's certainly an upgrade over the regular Taycan that offers 366 litres and an estimated 1,100 litres. Note, no matter what Porsche you go for, if you go for the Bose or the Burmester audio systems, this will reduce total capacity due to the positioning of the subwoofer. Elsewhere, you do also have 60/40 rear split folding seats, which comes fitted as standard. Although if you go for the 4+1 seat configuration, this moves up to a 40/20/40 split folding seats, making it a little bit more convenient to take elongated goods. On the side of practicality, however, it's not that convenient to prop down the seats, because you'll still have to reach around towards the rear of the cabin rather than electronically releasing them from the boot. Elsewhere, you do also have a roof load capacity of 75 kilograms. Now, this does bring us on to its exterior design, where we think it looks absolutely stunning. It very much follows on the same sort of Porsche DNA and is very similar to the regular Taycan, although it's a little bit more elongated towards the rear of the vehicle, somewhat reminiscing of an estate. Nonetheless, over here, looks are quite subjective, so it'd be intrigued to hear what you think in the comment section below. Now, 19-inch alloys come fitted as standard, and the pictured 20-inch alloys that we have fitted come in at a whopping £1,776. You do also have the ability to go for 21-inch alloys if you prefer. As for your color options, you've got a white and black solid finish. If you want a metallic color, it's going to cost a little bit extra. Or if you go for the premium metallic, such as the one that we have pictured, it comes in at a whopping £1,683. Elsewhere, when it comes to its exterior design, we should mention mentioned that the handles are auto-deploying. In other words, when you do unlock the car, they'll prop open, and when you start driving away or indeed going at speed, they'll prop down and therefore going into the body of the vehicle in order to optimize the overall aerodynamic flow. Now, moving on from its design, it does actually perfectly lead us on to safety, whereby at the time of filming it hasn't been tested by Euro NCAP, although one can only imagine that it will score a similar 5 out of 5 score as its sibling, the regular Taycan. Now, in terms of the driver assistance system, it's actually really basic and quite disappointing. You've only got lane keep, positioning, and also traffic sign recognition and basic cruise control with speed limiter. If, however, you want to bolster the experience with lane change assist with blind spot monitoring, you'll have to spend £548. If you want the adaptive cruise control, which actually does work a treat and was fitted on our model, it comes in at a whopping £1,238. Now, if you do want to better the experience when you're parking as well, you might want to go for surround view, which comes in at £522. Indeed, the option list is pretty vast. Now, thankfully, however, the front and rear parking sensors and a rear view camera all come fitted as standard, and the rear view camera resolution is absolutely excellent. Better still, the visibility at the front, side and at the rear vehicle is perfect, and I've got no issues whatsoever. Of course, you will have to get accustomed to the slight wide and longer body shape of the Cross Turismo in comparison to the regular Taycan or indeed some of its competitors. So with all of that in mind, it brings us on to our verdict, and here the Cross Turismo is arguably the better pick over the Taycan. Of course, it depends in terms of your use case, but if you're not purely looking for the utmost performance and the driving dynamics, then the Cross Turismo has that good blend of that Porsche DNA, and while also incorporating a more practical design, and as a result actually gets our Best Buy award. Now, it's worth considering that there are some other vehicles out there on the market. Specifically at this price point, you can get vehicles such as from Tesla or BMW, which give you a likened experience, although there's many things that won't compare to the Porsche driving dynamics even of the Cross Turismo. Now, we'd be intrigued to hear which vehicle you would pick down in the comment section below. And if you've liked this independent detailed review, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribe, and also hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. And if you've done that already, we just want to thank you in advance. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.